So if you're interested in the longer variation on this video, it is available on YouTube, and I think it's from a couple years ago. It's a military track. I mean, sorry, military airfield. It's one of the largest in the U.S., and they took it over for the show. It's kind of interesting. I really liked what they're doing. Anyway, just I thought I'd start with something performance driven, since it's a performance show. Looked at a couple different books for the show. Go Like Hell, if you're not familiar with the Ford versus Ferrari story, pretty interesting movie and interesting story as well. Car Science, an under the hood, behind the dash look at how cars work for those novices or people that are interested. And Car, it's a history of the automotive industry. If you're ever in Shanghai, for example, definitely check out their car museum, which starts with a wheel, like a stone wheel. Really interesting museum collection, but that's just a history of that. When you look at that collection, for example, you have a lot of American, Russian, and Chinese copies, but the big cars are actually Buick, because that's a big brand in that market. So really interesting car museum. Go ahead, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us on our performance car show, something a little different for us. And I have to tell you, though, I look back at my life and I really wish I would have become an automotive reviewer, because darn, that's fun stuff, man. And it's amazing what an extra $500,000 will do for you over an Aston Martin when you get one of those McLaren Sennas. Well, the one of 30, but that's it. If you got the money, what the heck? Anyways. Again, thanks for joining us. Just before we get started, we do have a bit of a disclaimer that the views and opinions of our guests are those of our guests and not of us. As I always say, most of the time we probably agree with them, but just to cover our own behinds, we take this, we just put that on, and our disclaimers on our website. And moving forward, we have today's performance car show with your hosts, Ian Nethercott, and myself, Jeff Polo. And thank you all for joining us. And joining us today in our very distinguished guests are, waiting for Ian to change the slide.
What's going on with that?
I don't know, but we'll get started. He comes up. Today we had 4 guests booked in, and one's having some difficulty joining us. But today we have Khalil Khan, who's the service manager of Porsche Center downtown and in the center of the universe, asking them in Toronto. Khalil, could you take a moment to tell us about yourself and introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. I am Khalil Khan. I work with Downtown Porsche, or Porsche Center Downtown. I've been in the car business, if you will, turning wrenches since 1987. And then went on, moved from Trinidad, a little island, moved to Toronto in 89, went to work for Volkswagen Audi back then as a service advisor. Worked with them for about 3.5 years, went to starting South by Isuzu. You'll remember that.
Ooh,
and then
Isuzu.
Now that's a performance car.
I know the Isuzu days. I got to tell you, the Volkswagen, out of all the cars that I've worked with, I got to say the Volkswagen ones, when you started off your career with VW, those stay in your blood for some reason. The Mark 1 GTI, I remember when the Corrados now came out, or even the Scirocco's were still under warranty. So yeah, so that's going back a few years. So I've been in the game for a while, but I gotta tell you, enjoy it. Every day can be like your first day on the job, depending on what happens, and it is fun. The car business is something, once you're married to it, you just can't get out of it.
You know, oil in your veins. Well, thank you. Appreciate you joining us. There's been a move afoot always in Canada to try and annex Turks and Caicos. And I even heard the Trinidad. We actually need some tropical place in this lovely place. Next guest joining us is Saurabh Sharma, who is the director of strategy and content and front ad media in San Francisco, and a Porsche nut. Saurabh, can you take a moment to introduce yourself and your connection to the performance car world?
Yes, thank you so much for the nice introduction, Jeff and Ian. It's my pleasure to be here and an honor to be with this distinguished guest. I've been a car nerd since probably the 80s, and I probably went to that Volkswagen dealership that we were just listening about and tried to take out a rabbit for a quick spin back in the day. I don't know. It's one of those things that when you grow up as a kid in different parts of the world. There's one and we used to get those little cars, and you play with those as a kid, and you grow up, and somehow it gets under our skin. And recently I've been doing tech marketing and brand building over here, but I've been thankful that I've been able to. I have a 981 right now. The performance has been something that I enjoy. It's like a gift that if we can give to ourselves, we appreciate it and savor. So yeah, exciting topic. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. And last but not least, far from least, a person who's embedded immensely in the world of performance and maybe German cars, which the beauty of German cars, you get great performance, with the exception of Porsche, of course. And then you get to fix them. And I always had a joke about German cars is your technicians were new, named Gunther or something else. And when you went to see them, their fingernails were cleaner than yours. So you're in trouble. Chris, please take a moment to introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Chris McNaughton. So I started in high performance world at 19 years old. I went to go work for Steve Dinan at Dinan Engineering down in Morgan Hill, California. And I didn't know anything about cars, but I had just had a newborn baby and I needed a job, and I was a hell of a salesman. So he brought me in as an order desk guy at 19. And now 20 years later, I'm the general manager of his new company, Carbon Auto Works. So I've been in high performance and tuning BMWs, and now we do more German cars, Mercedes, Audi, Porsche. And but BMWs for a long time. So I've taken about 100 calls a day to what can we do to my car, things like that. We've grown this company, the new company. We've grown from 6 dealers about a year and a half ago that actually install our products, BMW dealerships. So you can go to a dealer, buy your brand new M5 and go and modify it right there without voiding the warranty. That's always been Steve Dinan's, claim to fame was you can modify your car and not be scared. So that's, we've adopted the same warranty protocols here. We've grown our dealer network from 6 to 70 in the last year and a half.
Wow.
So we've grown tremendously, and it's been great. High performance world here. Actually, I would tell you, we're just going to run. We have an M2 on the dyno, 800 horsepower engine that we just built. Yeah, here we go. Right here. Here you guys go. This is my world every day.
Wow.
I didn't like that.
So
Okay,
what?
Chris, you've just won the Cool Award.
Yeah.
So is there a limitation in terms of what cars you work on? Oh.
Yeah. So that's a customer of ours, a local customer that he spent about $70,000 in upgrades in that car. And
Wow.
it's an $80,000 car with $70,000 in modifications. So we go from mild to, by just software, to wild. The license plate on that car says M2 loud. I don't know if your speakers on your computer or phone still work, but
Wow.
that's every day we got that. So
if someone has, for example, a Porsche product or a Jag product or American Muscle product, that's not a problem. They can spend whatever they want to upgrade it. Is that correct?
no, we just work on BMW. We just work on German cars.
So Porsche,
Yeah.
BMW.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Audi.
So that's-
No Lucas Electronics.
yeah, we don't speak English around here.
So in other
No
words,
American.
your head,
But my
your head
first
tech is named
hot
Gunther.
rod was the '65 Chevelle. That was my
Right.
first. I was 17 years old, and I never crashed it. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's
But
a
thank you
good
guys.
move.
Yeah, thanks for having me. But yeah, I live this. This is performance. This is what we do.
Okay, I'm officially jealous. I have to say, so if that M2 was in that drag race, he probably would have been.
You know, this, I will tell you a story. So we finished this car. We're actually detuning. We're doing a torque reduction in first, it's a manual for first, second, and third gear because it makes 700 pound-feet of torque. And in first gear in an M2, it's useless. So we're actually doing a torque reduction in first gear, adding a little more second gear, adding a little more in third gear, and then in fourth. Because me and Steve Dinan, we went out on the road test the other day, and we hit a little bump at 145, and it actually broke both tires loose. Like we just launched the car. It was the most odd experience. And we're running a 305 R88 tire on there. So can't fit any more than a 305 in the rear of an M2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, you're good. Yeah, you would literally have to open up those wheel wells to put anything bigger on there.
Yeah. The best part of this job is I get to do all the testing of the cars and I don't have to pay for them.
I certainly hope you know the local constabulary well.
They know us well. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can just see the guys going, 3 David, Charlie, McNaughton and Dinan are just going by there. Let them go.
we've been pulled over testing cars many times and I've never got a ticket. So
Knock wood, my friend.
And
do you do any work for the police force and that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, we donate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
the big joke up here, of course.
Yeah. Actually, they come by. A lot of the PD come by for tours of the shop to see our race cars. We race Audis in IMSA. So we used to build engines for Chip Ganassi. Now we race Audis. So we'll be racing in 2 weeks, or 2 or 3 weeks at Mid Ohio in the GTD class. This is our championship winning race car right here, the 39 Audi R8. It's kind of a part there. That's and then this is the new purpose-built full carbon Audi R8 GTD car. So that one we just got from Audi. It's a full purpose-built race car, as you can see in here. So
wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
So there you go. Yeah. So you guys should check us out on IMSA. We'll be racing in a couple weeks.
Wow.
Well, that'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah. R8. Yep.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to one day traveling. I'm going to drop in and see you guys when I get down there.
Oh yeah, totally. We'll go for some rides.
I'm in. Okay. So now we all feel like just totally insignificant.
No. This is just I get the fun job. So that's it.
Good for you. Well, it's funny. We have to say any of us that are into cars certainly know you see a BMW drive by with those 5 letters on the back and
say Dinan.
You knew it was pretty special. So
so
gentlemen, thank you all again for joining us. And tell me, well, Chris has already told us the answer to this question, but Sir Rob, tell us what made you become a performance car enthusiast.
Well, first of all, I love the handling and the tactile experience that I got when I first got behind the wheel of a Peugeot 505 in West Africa. And something about it just kind of clicked. And so ever since then, personally for me, like the sound has become very important. The tactile sensation of whether it's the steering wheel or the pedals has become really important, and the handling, like how it maneuvers curves, are essential. And like I find on a personal note, like literally every vehicle, I end up getting a new kind of I need the sound to be for my ears, not always like although like a lot of the German cars have like good sound that they come with, or you can you can get it. For my ears, I want my own custom sound, because I think the perception of speed it's an internal thing. It's how like literally every vehicle on the road today can go very fast, but you don't always perceive the speed. You don't perceive the performance of it. And so I think for those of us who want that tactile sensation, I think we want to personalize our vehicles so that we feel something when we're in it.
Well, I have to say you hit the nail on the head with sound. I mean, Porsche with the Taycan, even unlike the dreaded T-word cars that go by you don't even know you're there. I'll never forget when I first heard a Taycan go by, a fully electric, and I hear this sound and I go, what the hell? So Khalil, please take that as your launching point now.
Sure. So what got me into cars, and this may be a little more long-winded. So when I was young, again, growing up in Trinidad, must have been 10, 11, and we lived opposite someone who used to have an offshore race boat. So here is that, I was young, jumping inside the engine bays, and this, these Keith Black engines would fire up, and I'm playing with a timing light. When the rest of my friends are still playing Atari and that kind of stuff, I'm looking at timing lights, and then I go on to finish college and stuff. But when I was looking for a job, I got a diploma as a computer technician, and there were no jobs. So I went to a cousin of mine who owned a performance shop. So I had one cousin that owned a performance shop. The other one was a shop manager at a Datsun. Well, it was Datsun, then it became Nissan. And, he had a full race cam with a pair of Webers on his car. And then my other cousin had a Toyota that was bought out 2 liters, and again, side drafts. Anyway, long story short, the Soundness side drafts, Weber side drafts, or even Mikuni side drafts, Webers with a pair with some headers on it, with a nice cam. The sound you get for that, there's a little wisp, and I can make that sound, but the sound of that, and you get that gurgly noise when it moves off, there was nothing like that sound. The beating of a cam, just like the old minis, you took out the Speedo and you put a nice little 32, 36 Weber just facing you, or 40, whatever, So I got into the cars with points and condenser before fuel injection, and so my love for performance came from my early years, so I really can't complain. It's suited me. I've got a career now that I've built off of coming from performance into being this side of the table of dealing with clients and dealing with their form of performance, because it's totally different from my side of performance.
And from a Porsche point of view, when you have customers that come in who buy a Porsche, for example, maybe they've been a fan for a while, do they talk to you a lot about performance? Is that what drives them?
Well, you know what? So everyone, and it's funny you asked that question, because when I looked at performance, so performance in our world in Porsche would be, we have people that come in and they define performance different ways. Yes, I know Porsche is a great performance-orientated car. You'll have won the most for Le Mans, that kind of stuff. You'll get that from a guy who wants to tell you about on-ramps and off-ramps, or his track days. You get the families now that come in and looking at Taycan or Macan or Cayenne, and they're more looking at the performance aspect. They're looking for is the car's going to be safe, it's going to brake when I need to brake, it's going to get my wife out of trouble when she makes quick maneuvers and the car stays on the lane, or when we run N-spec tires and we know if it delaminates for nail or whatever, the car's going to track straight. So everybody's version of performance is a bit different. The track days we put on every year for driver's ed, then you get the performance guys that want to come out, or women, and and then they get that Porsche smell. But again, so performance, though, I got to say, for our mainstream, is that the cars hold up, they perform well, they do what they're supposed to do. And for some guys, I get right on my chest and hear the burble from the exhaust as a kickback, and the manual shifter. So I got to say, the Porsche, when it comes to performance in Porsche, there's cars, but then have you listened to Carrera GT? that every single time it gets my the hairs up on my arms. You hear that big idle or start up or rev. That thing just does it. Or like an old 917, if you will.
You know, there's nothing better. You can sure tell a gearhead. And I was watching everybody's faces here, and you can tell a gearhead when somebody talks about side draft Webers and everybody starts smiling. You know, because it really is. And actually, I don't know if Khalil, you made the comment earlier about Lucas Electronics.
Yes.
And that kind of tells you why Chris does not deal in British cars. You've all heard the joke as why do the English drink warm beer?
No.
No, well, because they have Lucas refrigerators.
Oh, yeah. Really.
And Chris, I just had a question. I mean, you have customers that come in that spend anywhere, I guess, from 20 grand to 80 grand on cars. You know, what motivates them to do that? Like, where does their passion come from? I mean, you have exposure to them as well.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's probably, they probably all started the same way that you guys did and that we did. You know, everybody kind of has their own goals. I mean, that's the first thing in dealing with performance products is, what are you trying to do with the car, right? I mean, that has to be your first question. Otherwise, I may be selling you some big turbos and you want your car to handle better, right? You want better track times. The turbos aren't going to help you, right? You need a suspension and you need brakes, right? So really it depends on what the end result or the end goal is for the car. But so as far as the passion of the customers, I mean, everybody that buys a BMW, typically, BMW over Mercedes, they're buying it because of the performance of the car. And typically the higher the performance car from the factory, the more money those guys spend, right? So we typically will make more products for an M5 or an M8 that I have out here about my door than we would for a 328, right?
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing. The guys that buy, a 6-cylinder muscle car back in days weren't going to put, a blower on there like the guys that bought the big block V8s, right? So the guys that spend more money on the car will spend more money modifying it as well. And those guys that spend more money on the car, they also don't want their car to sound the same, right? You talked about the sound. BMW now pumps sound in the speakers because the turbo engines are quiet, right? So we had artificial sound, right? So it's just not the same, but it gives you that sense of speed. A lot of customers, the goals are different. We get a lot of track guys. We get guys who do autocross events. So, we're going to be suspension, wheels, and tires. We get guys that M2 that you guys heard, he goes out on the highway in Mexico and they race for big money. So his goal is to, hey, I want to be from 60 to 200 miles an hour faster than everybody else. And that's how we're going to build that car. So really it's what the customer's end goal is. Sometimes they don't even know. They just want to go faster. They just want to go stop. They're more of they just want to go stoplight faster than the Hellcat next to them or the Camaro Super Sport.
So I have a question for you. Thanks for that. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about EVs, and just in case you're curious about EVs, we're doing an EV show later this month. So we're gonna have some heavy hitters on that show. What do you think is going to happen with performance cars when we look at these? Like an EV going 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. I mean, I drove that Mach-E over the weekend, and to be honest, I just wasn't connected to the car. Like, it was cool, like, I guess. But it just doesn't have, it seems to be missing some DNA in my opinion. So if I look at cars like a 918, for example, or other examples, where do you think that's going to go from a performance point of view? Do you think people will be upgrading that?
So me and Steve, we've been talking about this recently. So, there's always, they can't outlaw all these cars. So there's still going to be guys that are going to want to modify the cars, sound better, handle better. I mean, I don't know how EV cars are going to be on the track or on, that's really untested yet, really. So, or at least what's available to the public. I don't see a lot of Tesla guys taking their car to Laguna Seca, even though Tesla's right here in our backyard.
Right.
So the EV, as far as being able to drive and go out and outperform, I mean, they're great to get 0 to 60, right? but a lot of our customers, they want to go 0 to 150. So
Right.
these cars are limited. Usually, they're the super performance ones by Tesla can now go up, faster than 125. But a lot of the electric cars are single gear transmissions or 2 gears, and so they don't go that fast. So I think that even though the 0 to 60 numbers are really fast, the overall performance of electric vehicles is nowhere near what we get in a traditional engine-based car. So those guys are still going to be wanting to. They may have an electric car, and then they're going to have their performance car.
Right.
Now
Well,
we have also been talking about modifying electric cars, so there may be a Dynan EV coming somewhere.
Okay, cool.
They're
Stay
the way-
tuned.
on
With
the
some sound, right? A little bit of sound.
Whatever sound you want. Yeah, order
on
it.
the weekend, I watched the Formula E race.
Yeah,
And, it's hard to watch because all you hear is that. But the
Yeah.
other thing is they limit their races to 45 minutes.
exactly.
Not
They can't-
100 laps, 45 minutes, because at 55 minutes, there's 28 cars sitting in the middle of the track somewhere.
And then they need 4 hours to charge.
Yeah. I'm waiting for them to do pit stops where they come in,
Change the battery.
literally pull out the battery, plug in a new one, and they take off.
That may be what racing goes to. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what do you think, Khalil? I mean, obviously you've had the question with 918 and Taycan. I mean, what
in
do
the
you
Taycan, yeah.
Yeah, so if you talk about 918, I mean 918 when that came out, that was different because everyone was now trying to get into that mode of having a high performance car with electronic, right? When you look at the performance stats of that, I think Road and Track got that 0 to 60 at 2.2 seconds, and sure enough, that thing would fly. That was a monster. It was when it comes in. I remember the first one that crawled up to me in the drive-through. In our service drive, I didn't even hear it coming, and I look around, and it's this brute because the car's, got these big hips, and then it kind of shocked me, right? But it's the kind of car that comes up really soft, and when the guy pulls out and nails it, then it sounds like, as you see, an old English guy coming out of a pub, it's just like that kind of monster, right? But I got to say, so that in itself led into where we are now when you talk electric with Taycan. And the Taycans, I mean, one thing with Porsche is that they build their cars to last 24 hours. When we talk about their heritage come from Le Mans or 24-hour races, they want their cars to be able to put through high performance and last 24 hours on non-stop beating. And so when we looked at Taycan, I mean, like that thing can be launched. Not everybody who's driving a Taycan is going to be launching at 0 to 60 or trying to get sub 3 seconds, if you will. But the car does handle well. I mean, if it's one thing I would say, since having those cars come in and seeing the clientele, it's 911 turbo owners. It was people who have our other cars, the 918 or even the Macans or whatever. They wanted to start going green. But then when they start driving this car and they see the performance out of this car, it still handles like a Porsche, so it's going to brake, it's going to turn, it's going to handle. I mean, you do feel a little, difference in your weight, but I got to say, the day that you do take them out and get to drive, looking past the emotional part of us all guys that want to hear the big V8, rack V8 beating or something that, has us jumping up in the seat.
Yeah.
These things are so quiet, so it's unnerving, when you get to take them out and it's so fast, but with no sound, right? But I gotta say the smell of methane, of a big top fuel, that you get that smell. Still, that's one of the best smells. Forget women's perfume. For me, it's one of those things that still does it for me. You smell the top fuel drives, and you're standing on the side of the track and you feel it reverberating against your chest. Now that's living, right? So, to say that we go to days of electric and we stand up against the track and see them go, yeah, they'll go fast, but I'm old school.
Well, check out that YouTube video. There's a YouTube video where they're comparing the Carrera GT to the 918. And they're talking about the similarities, but the most interesting thing about it was sort of the evolution of that design. It was really interesting. What's your thoughts, Sarb? I mean, you're obviously an oil and gas guy, but you've owned electric cars. What do you think?
You know, it's a great question, and the part of the issue is the technology. Well, first of all, we need EVs to save ourselves in some way.
Yes.
But at the same time, sometimes the issue with EVs are the battery weight. Is the battery weight, and also sometimes it's like sometimes it's almost over-engineered. And so sometimes, like, for those of us who really want to get to that feel, we want that somewhat under-engineered vehicle. And even when you get one of these things, you almost feel like, is there a way to re-engineer it to make it like less engineered, because they have engineered all the fun out of it. And so that's some of the issue. I've test driven the Tesla, and I found, like, it's interesting, but like I found the handling, because it's heavy. And if you're used to performance vehicle, you know that every ounce, every kilo in the car matters. So, and I know that as these batteries get better in terms of efficiency and hopefully in weight, that'll lead to really better cars in the future. But presently, it can sometimes feel uninspiring. However, I think Porsche, with like the hybrid technology, seems to be pointing a way to a solution that maybe if we have these hybrid engines, and I think we'll be seeing more of those in all models, moving forward, rather than just being an EV. And the other option could be very well that we either manufacturers or we go to aftermarket, like, to get that sound. Like, you say, hey, it's too quiet, I can fall asleep. And then it also gets to, at least for those of us who really love driving and motorsport, is like, we want to feel engaged when we are behind the wheel. And I don't want it just to be about listening to the, like something. I want to feel engaged by what I'm driving. And so, like, it's almost like we got some good technology in the EVs coming through, but in some ways, so those of us who want the tactile sensation, who want also the appeal of a sexy looking car design, it's something for us, I think, to get used to.
Yeah, like when I look at interesting stuff going on, whether it be diesel hybrid technology or diesel plug-in technology, and sort of the performance angle there, or the gas hybrid technology. And I've been following Tesla since the early days. I went and drove a Roadster in Seattle before they were even in Canada. And I remember going down there to meet a salesman, and they didn't have a salesman, so they just sort of threw you the keys. And that was a Lotus-based design. But I still feel, even today, that it doesn't have that oomph that everything else does. Now, maybe there's an opportunity for Dynon there to bottle the sound and sell it to Tesla owners who actually care about that, right? And I don't know what the thoughts are on the Roadster that's coming, but it's pretty interesting. But go ahead, Jeff. Next question.
Well, I have to say that I can. You mentioned hybrids, and I can actually see a future for an M5 with a hybrid in there that gives you a 100-mile or 60, 70-mile range on electric mode. And as soon as you put your foot into it, out comes this 1,000-horsepower beast with the launch torque of the electric, and it could be cool. Yeah. Chris, tell me about your biggest performance horror story, because you guys must have a ton of them.
Oh, yeah. I don't know where to start on that. I think everybody thinks they're a race car driver, so they can't buy driving skills. So we've had many times where customers have spent a ton of money, and including one former football star in the NFL. He had just spent probably, I don't know, $40,000 in upgrades back in the Dynon, the M5, the E39 M5, 2001. It was in Car and Driver, the Dynon S2 package, it was called. It was in Car and Driver. It achieved 4.1 to 60, and it was like the fastest family sedan ever on the planet. And he had bought one, upgraded it with a dealership out in Houston, and I'm gonna turn my phone off there. A dealership out in Houston. They spent a month building the car, and he went and he was showing off in the parking lot of the stadium and wrapped it around one of the light poles. They're very spread out, and then he ended up doing it all over again. But you know, there's a lot of stuff like that. You know, we've had horror stories at the dealership of the dealers, you know, taking the cars out after building them to go test them and looping them around the curb or stuff like that. You know, as far as building stuff and having any failures, I mean, it's kind of part of designing, you know, cars is building it until it fails, right? And so, but not really too many horror stories, to be honest. We've, you know, being around Steve, he's an engineer, right, by trade, and a car guy by heart. He's really calculated, so we haven't really had, you know, too many horror stories, you know, besides, you know, the wrecked cars after doing the performance stuff. So always go and take some driving lessons when driving a fast. So,
You know, it's funny you mentioned the football player. I spent some time with BMW, and up here, of course, where here hockey is like football. What football's okay, but we used to supply an X5 to this hockey player, very prominent hockey player, one of the enforcers. And you know, a hockey at all, enforcers, the biggest, toughest guy that protects the little guy that scored the goals. And very well known, very, very popular guy in the city. And one day he got into an accident in his X5, and it hit the news. We sold 10 of them within that week. It was just amazing. And we were paying the insurance, and we were happy to do it.
Yeah.
Great. So Rob, tell me about your horror story.
With performance, you know, essentially it's my quest for a better sound. And I ended up getting like I had the last of the air-cooled 911s. So it was a 1997 Cabriolet. It was a pastel yellow 993 version of the 911. Very desirable, but I ended up putting an aftermarket exhaust on it, and anyway, you know, and I would go out on the weekends, but it brought about a resentment from my neighbors. And I was like, I hardly drove the car, but like they were like, oh, you, and I was like, I'm not going, like, you know, I'm leaving and coming back at a time where I'm not really disturbing some of them. But one of the ladies got so, and I was like, she actually called the cops on me. And the police came, and they're like, you know, we're really sorry. We're really like, you know, we have heard a lot about your car. Can we take a look? And I was like, oh. and so they were like, we hear it's really loud. And I was like, well, it's an air-cooled car. And like any air-cooled engine, like the Volkswagen Beetle, you turn it on, and when it's on initially, like it's gonna make some sound. So anyway, my horror story is, for a while, I had to replace the muffler back to the original muffler, and then I had to swap it out again. And it's what sometimes we have to deal with.
I have to tell you something. I bet you wish you still had that car today, because it probably would be worth more than a house. Well, not in San Francisco or Vancouver or LA, but in the Midwest.
Yeah. Isn't that
I
true?
remember watching one going through the auction up here, and an air-cooled one, and that was before I really got that whole concept. And one 10 years newer with half the mileage on it sold for a quarter of what that thing did, and it wasn't a nice car just because it was an air-cooled one.
Cooled. Yeah.
So now, the last but not least, because I'm sure that Khalil, you've got some really good stories there.
Well, you know what? I gotta say, I've done the exhaust deal that that he was just speaking of, because at one point my ex and I both had Cayenne S's, and I'd done both of them with downpipes and K&Ns, and so whenever we started them up, and we lived in a townhouse, so whenever she started up and I started up, not only did we both driving Porsches, so the neighbors was already anti us, but then with the loud exhaust, these things were, the Cayenne started up and as Porsches do. But it was good. Sometimes I'll line up. I kid you not. I said this off record, of course, but the wife and I might happen to meet each other on the way home, or after picking up. She's got 1 or 2 kids, and I've got 1, and we, just stepped on and light up the neighborhood. But anyway, that's not my horror story. I gotta tell you. So one of my horror stories, I would say, in my years of being in the car business, honestly, would go back to about 1989. And I was working at Volkswagen Audi at the time. And one of the technicians had just bought himself a 5-liter Mustang. Now, I know we all have a story about a 5-liter Mustang. Anyways, he buys this Mustang and he's in the shop. It was a quiet day and he hooks up a bottle of NOS. And he decides after he's going to take a drive. Then he comes back and he says, guys, you're going to see what this car is. So I jump in the passenger seat and we're going to go around the block in this car. And he has the NOS on. And honestly, there's stock tires, stock seats. So every time he can't lift his foot off the gas pedal. So all we're doing is pointing in every different direction. And he's just woo and Riga. And I swear to God, I couldn't even see where we were going straight. The car was just all over the road. And that was the scariest ride of my life ever. So I got to tell you, it was that 5-liter Mustang. You remember those days, the 1987 Mustang, and everybody just dumping on, an intake manifolds and exhaust and put NOS on it and Bob's your uncle. It was just silly. It was silly. I got to tell you. So I'm so glad that now performance comes with brakes and tires and lightweight stuff that people know, hey, the car's going to brake, it's going to stop. We have some traction. Imagine that.
That reminds me of, I saw a lot of people, they put a big engine in a car, and the last thing they would work on after they did it, they said, well, maybe we might need brakes.
Maybe we might need brakes.
Oh my God.
I still remember I worked at a Honda store. We had a car that was traded in. It was an Acura Integra, and this guy had put all kinds of upgrades not well on the car. We were trying to sell this thing used. Sometimes it would start, sometimes it wouldn't. Every time you test drove it with a customer, you thought you were going to die. And I go on a test drive with this guy. He's a 18-wheeler long-haul trucker. So he's trying to drive this manual car without using the clutch.
Oh, good Lord.
On a test drive because he's an 18-wheeler trucker. And I'm like, please don't do that when I'm in the car, dude. Like, I don't even know if this car was put together right. I have no idea. But it was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here, Anyway, what advice would you give someone looking to get into the performance car, even join in the performance car business? Maybe we start with Chris.
Don't start on the forums.
Yeah, it's not the truth.
So a lot of, look, you got to get information somewhere, and I know a lot of guys they'll be in the forums and they're looking in that. That's a lot of bad information out there. So I get the first say, hey Chris, are you on the forums? No, I try not to be. Oh, okay, because I'm on there, and that's not right. It's funny because this is really performance. The performance, being in this industry, it's a really niche business, right? It's not. It's weird. It's a unique thing. Like, there's very few companies that do what we do, as far as engineering, manufacturing, design, selling, distribution, all within one. A lot of performance companies now are importers and distributors, right? They bring in products from all over and then send them out. we do everything in house. Dining does everything in house. Rentec, they do everything in house. There's a few companies that start with this. So I mean, I would say, you know, obviously to get into performance business, you got to decide on what do you want to do in this business. Do you want to be a software engineer and a software tuner? Do you want to build the perfect sounding exhaust? Do you want to focus on suspensions and handling? See, a lot of people know Steve for making cars go faster. People don't know Steve Dinan was the first person to build a performance chip. When you say chip tuning, right? Do you put a chip in my car? Well, we're far from chip days, guys. It's a software program through the diagnostic port. The chip tuning. So Steve actually put the first chip in a car back in the early 80s. And when we were at Dinan, we actually had this big binder of chips that he had made. He had made them for that Acura Integra, probably for the one that was falling apart. So he made, I mean, the twin turbo 300ZXs. So you could be an engineer and design software and learn about, you know, advancing timing and air fuel ratios and those sort of things. How long does wastegate need to be open on the turbos? So, you know, you could be a software engineer, you could be a hardware engineer and design exhaust, but how much baffling do you need to improve the sound internally, right? And then suspensions. I mean, so Steve's favorite thing to tune on a car is the suspension. It's not making it that does make it go faster, right? You can add 100 horsepower to a car, but and improve lap times at the track by maybe a couple seconds. But you dial in the suspension on a car, right, and you have the right grip, you can improve by 4 or 5 seconds a lap time. You know, so I think suspension tuning for the performance of the car is something that very few people focus on, and that can yield the best performance results. So if you want to get into the performance business, you're going to want to find your niche within this niche and see what you can be the best at, right? You want to be the best at something, whether it's suspension tuning or engine tuning or designing the best supercharger or turbocharger. You always want to be the best at that. But, you know, the big turbo guys, that Whipple doesn't design the supercharged. I mean, they design supercharged, they don't build suspensions, right?
Yeah,
So Garrett builds turbos, they don't build suspensions. You know, we're kind of that company that we will buy the best products from, you know, the turbo company, and then we're not going to build turbos, but, you know, we'll put that in, we'll make a package of a car that works, and that's what we do.
So if a dealer, let's just say it's a German car deal, BMW, Porsche, they have a customer comes in who just has a new problem, which is I have too much money, and I want to upgrade my car. You know, would you then work with someone like Khalil and say, hey, like, what is he looking for? You know, like, how would that work? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so that's kind of our daily routine. So as we're sitting here, I got calls from Princeton, BMW Gwinnett out in Georgia. We have dealerships, and I work with their service directors, service managers, general managers, and we have guys that come in that have, you know, tons of money, and they're just like, I want everything, right? So it's okay. Let's get started. What is he trying to achieve? He just wants to go fast. He's never taken the track, and he's got a lot of money. Great, we'll give him the everything package. So, you know, we have our own machine shop here. We build our own engines. So like for the M5 that you mentioned, new F90 M5 or Steve Dinan's M8 out here, we build the stage 1, 2, and 3 engine, depending on how much power you want. Our engines come with a 2-year unlimited mileage warranty, and our stage 3 engine will be capable of handling well over 1,000 horsepower to the wheels over a long period of time. So we build our own engines. We would send out turbos. We have our own software. We have suspension. So all the stuff that we design, the things that we're not going to do here, we're not going to build exhausts like we did at Dinan. Right now, the exhaust, because turbo cars are quiet, exhausts are so expensive to design. They're all 4 tips now. They all need to seem to be titanium, super lightweight materials. It's very costly to build exhausts in this market right now, especially out here in Silicon Valley. A welder, God, they probably make $100 an hour welding out here. So, you know, it's very costly to store the material and to pay California wages. And we're not going to outsource to other countries to build a product because we need to maintain control, right? Quality control, and we would limit that. So, you know, we're not going to get into carbon intakes. We're going to leave Dynon Company, which is still around. They do exhaust and intakes very well, and then we'll do all the other performance packages. So we'll send those out to the dealerships. They install it there. So you can take a brand new M5 or M8 and install our engine, our turbos, software, everything, and not void the new car warranty. So the way it works is if that dealer in its 5,000 miles has a problem, they either bill us or they bill BMW for the failure. Navigation screen goes out, BMW pays. Fuel pump goes out, we pay. So.
All right. When I grow up, I want to be just like you.
No, you'll be like Steve. He's way smarter.
Well, that's okay. It's always nice to hang around something like that anyway. So that's outstanding.
Yeah.
So Khalil, you have some experience in the performance car, obviously with brands like Isuzu, right?
Yeah. You know what? So that thing used to rev pretty good. I got it. You know, didn't have to get it, but go. But it had little fun factors to it. Yeah.
Well, no Lada experience? No Lada experience?
No, you know what? I've never seen one up close and personal yet.
Best thing about Isuzu were the Joe Isuzu commercials.
Oh my God. You know what? Those days, I tell you, for the Isuzu, I can't remember what was the year. Was that 91 to 97 or something that they were produced? That we used to get them twin cam, 16 valve, that kind of stuff. But you know, I didn't know if people back then. I don't think there was a lot of performance that I saw going on for that. Not like coming from the Volkswagen days. For VWs, you know, we were putting on the bigger throttle, even still a bigger throttle body. There was a lot of exhausts, suspension, Koni adjustables. Those days were more of that. I would say from the Saturn stuff and Isuzu days, the performance kind of took a downturn for me. So I was doing it on my own. When I say on my own, I had a friend that had a performance exhaust shop, Sabre Performance. This other guy, JRP, now got started as well. So, you know, I would bore hole an exhaust, honey, you know, I need to buy some headers because the exhaust has a hole. She has no clue what headers are. Just so the HKS come in, it was crazy back in those days, you know. Still, you know, my brother, I mean, I still own it, but it's his, an 87 Supra, you know, it's got a big turbo, the full 9, if you will. But performance cars, I'm telling you, they're crazy. And anybody who's now looking to get into performance, let's see, because that's the question, right? What would I tell them? And again, like Jeff said, because it's a niche market, and it really is to where you are. Yes, everybody does performance, but I would say go out to local car shows or car swap meets and really see what people are talking about. You know, what is their lingo of the town that you're in? Whereas, you know, you wouldn't want to be, again, saying, hey, you know, I'm doing exhaust systems for a small town or a city that, you know, noise pollution is getting loud and they put down noise bans on that because you're not going to make money on that. But again, if I was getting into the performance market, again, I would be looking along the things of suspension, go fast products, if you will, that's out there. You know, but local swap meets, I say, generally tells you what's going on. I mean, there's a big, and again, go back to the British ones that they have, that's 400 more or less broken down cars because everybody's selling fuel pumps, these old MGs and stuff, for the old Morgans, right? So I go there and not that I'm chuckling to myself, but I remember those days, right? It's not like the old Ford RS 2000 motors, those were nice, you know, the 4 days working on those kinds of cars. But, you know, what can I say? Performance comes in different ways. You know, one thing that we were mentioning earlier, and take it for 2 seconds here. You see how it went from, now we need, in our era, we need the audible of an exhaust or an intake or whatever to give us that when we drive an electric car. We're missing that. So it seems like we're missing that part of it. But it must have been the same thing like Porsche, when they had their first electric vehicle back in 1901, and they're passing people that are on horse buggies must have been that, that's what we're going through now, because all of a sudden something new is on the block, right? But I still need an audible, man. I need the audible, I need the smell, I need the heartbeat. I gotta tell you, it's one of those things. It's a sound, it goes hand in hand together.
Fantastic.
I have to tell you, I think we should all go into a joint venture and create a new cologne company called Gear Oil.
Yeah, I needed some of that. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, sensing this to Tom, we got 3 minutes. Any final thoughts, Sarb, or from anybody else?
This is a great topic, by the way. I think that any new person, it could be even like a young kid who wants to go into it, I would also recommend how are you going to be driving it? Like, thankfully where we are, I love going along the Pacific Coast Highway. And so, you have the curvy roads, you have
beautiful.
It depends on how are you going to be using that vehicle. So I think it's like an inner journey for, what is going to highlight that drive for you, or when, the ideal drive when you're driving it. How do you visualize it, and what does that mean for you as a person? So everyone has their own thing.
Yeah. PCH, nice highway to drive on.
Or Khalil, any final thoughts?
No, I was just saying, PCH is a nice highway to drive on for sure. But I got to tell you, in all the things that we do, because we are touching our touch points is our clients, our customers, and the people we build relationships with, it's always that smile. So whether it's the Porsche smile I get with people from the track days, or like Chris is saying, when he does something for someone, is when they go away and they come back and they see that smile, that genuine smile that they have, that you can't replace. That when you say money can't buy, it's that smile. It's like an injection into the arm. You get that high also. I gotta say, that's one of the best parts of doing the job, isn't it? When you see how enthusiastic they are.
It's that's funny, because just on Friday, we had a customer who blew his engine, unfortunately, rod bearing failure. It's a BMW problem on the E92 M3, the big V8 that was in the M3. And he had a failed rod bearing. We built an engine, but it's our 4.6 liter stroker. It's quite expensive. It's $25,000 on a car that's probably worth $25,000 now. And so he got what we call Bank of Wife. He got Bank of Wife approval to buy the engine. And so Friday he came to pick it up, and it is, man, for me, I got the car detailed. It looked like it hadn't been washed in like 2 years when it showed up here. But I had the car detailed, and I had it parked as such, so it's right in front of our door, our sign facing the driveway. And I went out and cleaned the engine bay all myself, and made sure that it looked like when he arrived, like he got what he paid for. And it's funny, when he walked in and then he came back to my office, and he's like, "Hey, I really appreciate the presentation there." When I rolled up to the car, it looked like he was welcoming, like, "Hey, buddy, I'm back. I'm healthy." And it was funny because I had taken pictures of it, and then I sent it to him later. And the guy had a $32,000 bill with me, and he sent me later, texted me when he got home, "Hey, thanks for everything. Hey, when you give me $32,000 and you're happy, that is why I do this, right? It's not because, God, I wish I didn't have to spend that money." It's when he showed up, gave me the money, and he got home, he texted me that he was very appreciative of how everything turned out. So
that's the best time, best part of your job.
Totally. Yeah.
But his wife looked at the car and said, "Looks really nice. What did you get for $32,000?"
It looks the same to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny too. You mentioned that to Khalil, the poster behind you with that racing 911. There's a company now in the States that's building those things new again. The exact car, Martini paint scheme, everything.
Yeah.
For about $275,000, but
more than that, I think.
More? Really?
Yeah, because his cars are normally about $1 million, His cars aren't cheap when you look at the Sing out of California. Their cars are pretty it's a pretty pricey penny, 6,000 hours to build one, this kind of stuff. So they're not inexpensive for sure. But
No, they're not,
Each
they're not
road-
building the race car. Sorry, they're building a
rally car.
they're building the car for somebody that's saying, I got a lot of money. I want a car that looks like a race car, goes pretty good, but really it's like a brand new car.
Holy cow! He should build me an ex-wife then.
I think you got one.
True. All right. So true. Yes.
That's right.
Well, sensitiveness to time, I want to thank everybody for coming on the show. I will have the edited version up later today, and I'll send you links. And
Awesome.
we're definitely going to have to do another show around, you know, how should I price out an upgrade or something like that? Like, you know, how do I get my wife's approval on whatever, right?
Yeah.
You know?
I just think we need to have a show where we all sit and talk, because this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. I gotta say, thank you guys for having me.
Sure,
It is something like that.
There you go. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Chris. Thanks,
everybody,
Sarb.
for
Thanks,
joining
Scott.
us.
Thanks, everyone else for joining in. Appreciate it.
We
All right.
really
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you as
Have
well.
yourself a great time. Tell your friends about us. And, you know, I look forward to meeting everybody too. So one
Yeah.
day, Chris, I'm going to knock on your door. You're going to go say, I recognize that bald head.
Sure,
Chris,
no problem.
definitely send us the details on that race you guys are doing. We'll have
Yeah,
to
I will. I'll
record it.
send you guys all the link. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and then
And I'm
anything
gonna-
for dealers, if they want to get in on working with you, send us some details there as well.
Yeah, we
Okay,
know,
wonderful.
guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Now I got to go buy one of those darn shirts too. See you later.
Have a
Thanks,
great
guys.
day.
Guys,
Take care.
thanks for having
Thanks
me.
everybody for attending.
All right.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.